This recording. Here we go. I would like to welcome everybody back to the third recording of the Who's Accountable podcast. I am your I'm your host. I'm the creator of this podcast. My name is Mahael Abdul Kawi. I'm also the founder and a representative of the Accountability Party for Human Rights. And here we are. For this episode in the podcast, I would like to kind of focus on two major, what I would say, mini dictators and the grand scheme of control of what's going on in the United States of America. Um, and the reason why I say too many dictators because I believe these two forces separately but together are the driving force in policy, and they dictate how this country is ultimately running. Um, and these two mini dictators that I'm talking about are the the military, or the Pentagon, or the brass, or whatever you would like to call them, and the corporations, the corpos, the assholes, Wall Street, whatever you want to give these two entities title. I believe these two entities are something that you find in different countries. You find that every country in this global human society has corporations, they have their military. But the reason why I say these two have become many dictators in the United States, it's because in these other countries, there is a three-way relationship, I would say, um, in 2020 sense, in terms of how the world is just operated, regardless if you're a democracy, capitalistic, communism, social, whatever you brand your democracy of being. I believe corporations and the military are always a crucial thing. But in most countries, it's a three-way share of the pie, I guess you will, between the corporations, the government, and the military. But when you look at America, the country that wants to always flex as if we have this real deep understanding, and this as if we paved the way to be an example of how to have a properly function capitalistic free market society, while also having a robust military, and then have a government that upholds righteous you know righteous idealism when it comes to a functioning society. And the reason why I believe, me personally, um, but I know for a fact it's not just me that believes this. I believe there is many out there. There are many others out there throughout this country, regardless if you're fighting for the cause, regardless if you're choosing to be sleep in terms of fighting against oppression. I think you would take a step back and see that the way this country is run, clearly, especially with the last 4 years, not just isolating Trump alone, but just politics as a whole, is really just a clusterfuck right now in this country. We're really in a position where it's not even to praise how other countries operate. You know, I don't think any. I mean, I do believe there are other countries that have that they are a couple steps ahead. I believe that there are some countries that have a more profound understanding of human togetherness while balancing individualism, better than we do. Of course, they don't have as much as resources, so it's not going to be seen as the shining example that that we're trying to come off as. In terms of, but in terms of this functioning relationship between having the society be progressive while still making sure that every individual, based on their individual characteristics and their specific path of life, where each person is able to have this fairness in game and ground, it's not really present here. And I think it's not present because of that missing factor, where you have in other countries, some in Europe, some in Asia, few that are in Africa, unfortunately. But that's a history lesson for another day about it. But it's it's a moral lesson, I feel like. These other countries that exhibit not a perfect, but a better balancing relationship between corporations, government, and military, they understand that to a degree, we have to invest into the people. We have to make sure that if we have to make sure that we survive long term. Survival is the end game for everybody, for everything. It's in our DNA to try and survive, regardless of the form or way. From a primitive stance, hunter and gathering, wearing certain clothing, using certain tools. Fast forward to today, survival looks a little different. There's a lot more people involved now. So for a country to function, for a society to function, you have to invest into your people, because with any smart investment, especially when it's an investment where I would say 60% of that investment, you can control the outcome. I mean, you are the government. It will return. If you're able to provide your people with education, with a way for employment where they can contribute in policy, when they can contribute their specific skill set and knowledge and resources to the greater whole. And it may, when you zoom in on one person, it may seem like, what? Well, this one person can't provide everything. Well, that's why you invest into a society, because now you have a couple 100 million people. And it's not as complicated as it seems, because again, there's other countries that have a couple million people and are able to do it, regardless if it's 100 million, a million, a billion, whatever is possible. But here, not only has the government taken a step back, they've taken several steps back from the boardroom meeting. And it's weird because I don't understand how you go. I mean, I do understand, it comes down to money, but to just kind of dictate how everything operates, although, yes, government has always been corrupted, especially in this country, but to have a factor where you were at the top of the pyramid and these two were like, down here, and it kind of broke off. It's like they're a part of you, essentially, like in a trinity of sorts. It's like Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. Like, yeah, these are the top three, but we know who the top one is. Essentially, the government, like, you're Zeus out of this three. Strike some lightning. Shake up the clusterfuck that your brothers Poseidon and Hades, corporations and military, are doing right now. but you're not. Instead, you claim to be king of Olympus, but yet you got your little brothers running this. It's confusing to me and frustrating. But I shouldn't be surprised. You know, I'm 25 years old. I grew up in a time where the government was already incapable of handling so much. So I'm not surprised that from the time I was born to now, it's only gotten worse. And these squabbles, that tear us apart, these squabbles that, like, here's the thing that I'm talking about when I say it's important that people come together and really see, the big problem, because we have corporations setting the standards here in this country in terms of how we work, when we work, how long we work, why we even work. We're not, we're no longer working in the service of our betterment for ourselves or for our family. We're working for the betterment for some guy that sits up in this chair in the office somewhere we don't even see. We don't even, for a lot of these companies, we don't even know who the top dog is, because we're still at the very bottom, living from paycheck to paycheck, where you can't even unionize because you might get shut down. Shout out to Amazon for what they currently done out to Alabama, to the efforts that people who are just simply asking, I'm not trying to hate your company. I'm not trying to fight your company. All I'm asking is I want to be part of something bigger that can guarantee my, not my survival, but I just want to thrive. And you're going to stop the opportunity for me and these other people to come together and establish what we rightfully not even earn, but deserve, and say that we can't, or to fight us. Like, we're just some people. Like, we're not trying to come at your spot. We're not trying to take your $1 billion. We just want to be able to, people just want to buy food for their kids. They just want to buy a nice TV to enjoy their favorite TV show. They want to be able to pay for their cats or dogs or whatever without stressing that, they can't pay for them. It's like, if people have these problems, then it should be because they have chosen that life for themselves, not because the system and these corporations who are run by people who only care about themselves say so. There's a huge difference. There's a difference between if I chose to go out and take drugs, compared to if somebody force fed them to me and said, "Oh, you got to deal with it. Take this shit." It doesn't. No, it's a complete different thing. And I think so many people, the reason why they're afraid is because they don't see that. They don't see that one distinction there, or they think that people are just complaining. We're not complaining. We dictate how we live. Not these few individuals, again, who sit somewhere, who don't even talk to the base workers. They don't come to the warehouses. They don't come to the grocery stores. They don't go out, to all the essential workers and say thank you. They can send them an email, but even then, that email is probably written up by some PR fucking person. So you have corporations like Amazon, Apple, Nike, these other American. I didn't know why we call them American when all their main work is overseas. Or, I mean, we could have called them American because of how they treat their workers, which is a very American way of operating. It's been that way since Columbus came here. It has not changed just because now we get a paycheck. It's the same idea. Keep the people down. It's just gotten smarter now because, the voices have gotten stronger. The knowledge has gotten more widespread. So, of course, they have to make it look pretty. That's what corporations do. That's all they know. It's just all numbers and PR bullshit. So that way we don't ever think that we're being screwed. But you can't. People have a sixth sense for fake shit. You can sense when something's off, fam. Stop it. And while we have these corporations doing what they do, dictating our way of life here, telling us how to work, why to work, when to work, how to eat, what to eat, when to eat, how to shop, when to shop, etc., etc. Then you have the Pentagon. Shout out to the good old brass hand. Uh, they're still going to be dictating how we handle personal affairs. I know Biden recently just said that he's going to pull out all American troops out of Afghanistan by the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Shout out to the American government. Um, which, I mean, I'll commend him if he does. I'm not gonna give him a fucking cookie, especially not when for most of his career he supported, going over there or just sending troops in places that we don't belong. Uh, and I don't think that us pulling our troops out of Afghanistan is going to be the end of what the Pentagon has established in our way of life so much, is that we have to have violence somewhere or we're not going to make money. That's been the name of the game since World War II. And because everybody's so afraid to have a World War III, we have to have smaller conflicts. Things and all that aren't on the same scale globally, but can still be enough, that good old Pentagon can milk its nipples and get as much milk as it can out of the bloodshed that we cause. Dictating foreign policy and government. Like, unless there's a Hitler, I don't know why we have to keep sending troops, special ops in places where we don't fucking belong. You're only fueling his hatred, this enormous negative energy that's building up around us. America is right here in the middle of everyone else, and we act as if we're the center of the fucking universe. And when you keep pushing buttons of other people the way we do, they're going to push back. And with the state of America right now, the state that we put ourselves in, with all the separation, with all the discord, with all the internal violence, we are a prime target for anybody, for any world leader that wants to have a good day and rise up to the challenge. They can strike us and prove to the world that they're the new power. And then what do? Try so hard to flex our muscle, hold ourselves up as if our hands are clean. Not at all. We're now in this moment where there is no trifecta of government, business, and military. It's solely just business and military. Government should be that holding group that pits the people's needs, the cultural needs, the human needs, the people first. They're the ones that bring it to the table, and the corporations and military are just more sort of enforcers of how we uphold this way of life. It shouldn't dictate it. And I'm afraid that regardless of who's president, regardless of who has the House and Senate, we're going to be in a position where both the neocons and the neoliberals have shown us that they're both high key on the same team. I don't think they even know it yet, and it's kind of the scariness of that, about that. And it's crucial more than ever, that we come together as people across this country. Everybody who understands the gravity of the situation of the oppressed people. Those that choose to speak about these things, myself included, it's up to us to spread as much information about the reality that we live in, that this country is 99% oppressed and 1% thriving is wrong. And the fact that there aren't more people with this stance is frustrating. It's frustrating, but there's still some hopefulness, because again, like I said earlier, people have a sixth sense for fake shit. And regardless if there is a majority of people that would rather just go back to brunch and to be asleep, I know that there is a growing distaste for the way these corporations are attempting to control how we live. I know there's been a bubbling distrust for the military that's only going to get more vocal as the years go on. So for the small minority of people, which is thousands of freedom fighters, thousands amongst the millions, it's important that that minority of thousands keep speaking, we keep fighting, we keep doing what we can, because we have to hold these corporations accountable for trying to manipulate us, even down to a biological level of how our brain and our brain chemistry operates. And we have to hold the military accountable for creating terror and violence and fear that will only strike back. Violence only knows violence. So if you create it, it's only going to respond back. It's not going to just bow out of nowhere. We as the people have to hold ourselves accountable, and our lack of speaking up against these two major forces that we constantly fuel into. In some shape, form, or way, we are fueling their existence by being benign to what's going on. And you just have to keep speaking up and keep doing. So this video, it's I don't want to see. I really just want to push people forward to just first come together. It's like in the food industry with those that are vegan and those that eat meat. This is constant back and forth of what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. Okay, but how about we stop wasting time with that fucking argument over what we should eat, and maybe change the argument to be, how can we fix the problem? How can we make sure and all that Americans aren't consuming as much meat as they are, so that way there's an option for people to turn it down, instead of saying, oh, you're bad because you're choosing. Fam, if it's everywhere and people grew up eating it, for one, I enjoy meat, but at the same time, you have to, again, it goes back to what I said about the drugs. It's like we're force fed this way of life, so it's not giving people the benefit of the doubt, but you have to just understand. And that's why there's no place for the back and forth, because if you're having a back and forth, you can't step back and be like, wait, let's just get to the source of this shit and just fix that. The same thing applies to these corporations and the military and the small little government that we have. Although people say it's too big, trust me, it's too small. If you look at the scale of what they're doing and how they're operating, it's barely a fucking footnote. But hold ourselves accountable to the fact that we do our part in fueling this discord, which then fuels into the blindness to all the corruption around us. The shit's it's getting to the point where there's going to be a major bending moment that's going to test that even more. If you think COVID was it, it's not. It's going to keep bumbling, for sure. But yeah, inshallah, things will get okay.